Welcome to week 7 of Foundation 52. Lucky 7. Okay, this week we're covering sales strategies, and there are 3 videos covered in this particular week. The first one is sales strategy basics, which we're going to cover right now. The next video is on capacity planning and pricing, and the third video is on adding value. And spoiler alert, you can't just say I'm adding value. And I'm pretty sure we've already talked about that, but I just want to point it out because people get really confused. Okay, sales strategy. What is a sales strategy? So sales strategy is really just a defined and very intentional plan for how you are going to position your product, qualify buyers, and then sell it. Sales strategy is really there. It's very important. It helps you to differentiate yourself from your competition. It helps you understand if the people that you are talking to are actually qualified buyers and if they're decision makers that could say yes to it. And it really helps you to drive sales within your organization. Much like we talked about a marketing strategy, the sales strategy is just as important. That's where your revenue really comes in and you're able to close the deal if you have a good sales strategy. And sales strategy covers everything from how you deal with people in the pipeline to what you do after the deal is done and you've closed, and you want to make sure that you don't get a return or a customer who changes their mind, or a client if you're selling a service where they come back and say, I don't really want this. So that's why you need a really solid sales strategy so that not only can you sell, but those sales are actually final. And those sales are final because you've sold to the right person, you've sold at the right price, and you are offering a really, really great product or service. Okay. We get asked a lot, I'm a solopreneur, do I have to sell? You do. And maybe you're not comfortable with it, and maybe you're just going to sell on Etsy. You're going to put a page up on Etsy, or you're going to put a page up on Pinterest. You still have to sell. If you don't sell, you're not going to have any revenue coming in the door, and then you're not going to have a business for very long. So it may look a little bit different for you if you were just a solopreneur, but you 100% are selling. You're selling in some way, whether you're selling on social, whether you're running paid ads, whether you have just a single client and you're continuing to sell to that client, you're selling. And it might look different for you, but you're doing it. You're absolutely doing it. And it'll make it easier for you if you at least look at your sales process from front to end to see all the touch points with the customers or the prospects and what it is that you're doing. Sales, everyone supports sales. And when you're a solopreneur, that's still true. Everything you do supports sales ultimately. So you want to make sure that you understand what your sales process is and you have a strategy built for actually selling more or having final sales. All right. How do you create a sales strategy? That is the winning question, right? That's why we're here. How do we create one? Start with your ideal customer avatar. Week 2. Did y'all think when we talked about ideal customer avatar in week 2 that it was going to be referenced this frequently? I'm telling you, it's really important. Now you can understand why when I said, I am surprised by the number of people who haven't done this exercise. You understand why I'm surprised. So much of your business depends on knowing who your ideal customer is. Your marketing, your selling, your sales process, it all revolves around, you got it, your ideal customer. Okay. Complete a SWOT analysis. So understand your weaknesses, understand your strengths, your opportunities, the threats. Now, next week, week 8, is when SWOT analysis is really covered. And we don't expect you to dig in and create a complete sales strategy in just a couple of days, especially if you've not ever done one before. But your SWOT analysis is a key part of it because you want to know, like, where are you really strong when it comes to sales? Like, are you really great at building a pipeline? Are you really great at closing? Are you really great at building the relationships and showing people how you add value? Like, what pieces are you really strong at? And what pieces are you not strong at? Like, do you have a weakness when it comes to telling people the price? Like if you struggle with saying the price, then you've got to have a strategy to make that easier for you, whether that be you list your prices on your website, or whether that means that you're talking about pricing in a way that's non-confrontational, where you just tell people up front, like, look, at some point in this conversation, we've got to get to the topic of price. So it's coming, we're just not doing it yet. And you just kind of do a little foreshadowing to it. There's things that you can do to make it easier on yourself. And one of them is to just get used to having that conversation. If you want to put food on your table and you run a business, you got to figure out how to sell, and you got to be comfortable talking about the price. And if you're not comfortable with the price, just a little side note here, that typically means that you don't see the value in the product or service that you're offering. And so you really need to sit back and think, what is it that I'm not valuing about what I'm doing? Because time is money, and you want to be able to really value it. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Okay. Next in your creating a sales strategy is review your marketing strategy. So take a look back at what you said you were going to do from a marketing perspective. What are you doing? Where are you looking for your ideal customer? Where are you marketing to them? And what are you asking them to do next as a call to action as part of your marketing strategy? So if you're looking at somebody on LinkedIn or Instagram and you're, directing them to your website, or you're directing them to book a call, what is the call to action that you're asking people to take that puts them into your pipeline? Then that then requires you, who is doing sales, to qualify that person as a qualified buyer. And then the next thing is understanding your revenue goals. So in week 34, we talk about revenue goals. And I know that's a long ways ahead, but understanding what goals you're trying to hit from a revenue perspective will really help you with your sales strategy, right? So if you want to get to $1 million, you've got to figure out how you're breaking that down across the year. Is it more backloaded? Is it more front loaded? We like to front load revenue so that it gets a little bit easier on the back half of the year, or so that we can actually exceed the goal. But you've got to do whatever works for you, but you need to know what your revenue goals are. You can't just wing it, right? If you want to hit, $20,000 a month, then you've got to have a strategy that supports getting $20,000 a month in sales, whether that be you're selling one $20,000 product or $21,000 products. It doesn't really matter how you're breaking that down. What matters is that you understand what your products or services cost and what you're trying to hit for revenue on a monthly basis. And then finally, you're creating an action plan. So your action plan is going to include your sales process, and it's going to include going through that sales process multiple times, right? So you want to have your process be very iterative. And your sales process really is, it talks about how you're finding your ideal customer, which you're, following on from your marketing strategy, and then how you're engaging with them, right? And understanding, like, if you sell a high ticket item, how many engagements, how many phone calls or face-to-face meetings or Zoom sessions does it take before you can close a deal? So if you sell something that's $60,000, how many conversations do you have to have before you're getting the client or the prospect to say yes? It's probably not happening on the first call. It's definitely not happening with a click and buy, especially if you're not a well-known brand. So is it 10 calls? Is it 15 calls? Is it 5 calls? Like how many engagements do you have to have? And what information and or collateral are you providing to that prospect to help them understand and see the value in what you're doing, and also to trust what you're doing, right? Because if you're asking for a lot of money, they want to trust that you're going to deliver what you say you're going to deliver. So that's part of your sales process, is understanding the number of engagements. And there's also what information are you going to be giving them to help? Like, is there, sell sheets or, customer testimonials or anything like that you can send to them? Then it's how frequently are you reaching back out to them? At what point are you asking for the sale? At what point do you talk about money? At what point do you confirm that they are the decision maker and that they are a qualified buyer? And I always love to do, an upfront contract with people. And upfront contract is a big part of like the Sandler sales method, but this is what it means essentially. When I start talking with somebody who's new, a new prospect, the first thing that I ask them about when I know that this conversation is going someplace is I ask them if they'll be comfortable saying no to me, that I want to know that they're going to be comfortable saying no if the price isn't right for them or the service isn't right for them, or they decide that it's not a good mix for them to work with us, right? Asking them to confirm that they're comfortable saying no. A lot of times people struggle with no. They struggle with with confrontation. They view that to be confrontational to say no. And you see this all the time, right? When you're trying to sell to somebody or having a conversation, or you want to invite them someplace and they're like, oh, maybe. And then they start to blow you off. It's like the whole concept of ghosting people when they're, internet dating. And you want to avoid the ghost, because a maybe is just a giant waste of time. A yes or a no, those are answers. And those are both answers you can work with. And a no isn't a bad answer. A no is just either, sometimes a no is not right now. Sometimes is a no, I'm out. And sometimes a no is no, but I still want to talk more. So you've really got to understand your prospect. So there's one upfront contract you can ask for. So are you comfortable saying no? I need you to be comfortable saying no to me or answering my questions directly when we get to that point, because we're going to talk about money and you have to be comfortable saying no. And you have to know that it's not going to end our relationship or our friendship, or we'll still be here if, 2 years from now you decide you need us. The other thing is this, always asking initially for time. Hey, can I get 10 minutes of your time to talk about X, our product, talk about our service, tell you about an experience that I had that I think might benefit your business, and never taking more than that 10 minutes. If you get to that 10 minutes and the conversation is going really well, saying, hey, you know what? I said it was only going to take 10 minutes. We're in the heart of a conversation, but I want to be really respectful of your time. So should we reschedule this to, schedule a follow-up to finish this conversation? Or are you okay continuing for another 10 minutes? And just iterating through that process, that builds trust. And then they understand that you're respectful of their time, and you see the value in what they're doing. So that's a big deal when you're in sales. But having the process defined, making sure you're working with the decision maker, that you qualify people up front. Can they even afford my service? And then do they need it? Is it a good fit? And then working through that process with them. How often do you follow up? When do you move them from being a warm lead to, oh yeah, this is somebody who's going to buy from us? What do you do to close the deal? What do you do once you've closed the deal? All of those things are part of the sales process, and they're really important, especially if you don't want to have somebody return what they've bought from you, cancel the sale, or decide that it's just not a good fit after you've had the conversations. Okay, that is it for video 1. We went a little bit long here, but there's a lot to talk about with sales, and I actually really enjoy sales. And next, we're going to talk about capacity planning and pricing. Also a very important conversation. Look forward to seeing you in video 2 for week number 7.